second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got it!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Works down by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Had to think about it for a second. Make sure I got that one right. Welcome in. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dylan Sinn joining us from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you. It's a beautiful rainy day, if that's what you like, because that is exactly what it is here in South Central Indiana. The rain is falling. Just a day where you catch up on whatever you want to catch up on, because, man, there's nothing going on outside, at least not here.
Yeah, it's pretty rainy up here in Fort Wayne too. We had the rain hasn't quite started yet, but we are expecting some later today. It's cloudy, it's overcast, but we're hoping to stay dry as long as we can here.
Couldn't come at a better time. Nothing going on really, Dylan. Everything is kind of done at the moment, middle of the week, so that is good. Let's see. You've got coaching visits, players coming to campus. You've got Indiana requiring a COVID-19 shot, but you don't have to show proof. Just all kinds of stuff going on. The coaches are out on the road. You've got prospects coming to campus to get visits that they have not been able to do for 2 years. That is going to change a lot of things. So it's weird to be talking about how big of a deal it is to have kids on campus, but it's a big deal because it hasn't happened for a couple of years, and the coaches they're scattered about right now.
Yeah, they're everywhere. I mean, that's the biggest thing is the prospects, the recruits can go wherever they want now. They can go schedule official visits. They can go to campuses. They can see what's going on. But the coaches could also get back on the road too, and that's when the grind starts for the coaches. You can start talking to players in person again. You can start talking to coaches in person again, and just going all over the place and seeing what you can see. And it's recruiting had been vastly different for the last year and change here. So we're getting back to normal with that, and that's going to change a lot of how coaches do things. It's going to start. Mike Woodson is his first time getting back out on the road, and he's going to get to see some of these AAU tournaments in person. And then, of course, we're going to see players who are committed start to actually visit some campuses. Even you're going to see players who have committed to places visit campuses at schools they're not committed to because they have the opportunity to do so. And some of them are just going to do it because it's fun, and some of them are going to do it because they're generally considering whether to change their commitment. So it's going to be a little bit of a free-for-all here over the next couple of months as well.
Absolutely. The Indianapolis 500 was just a spectacle. It truly was. The weather was fantastic, first of all. You had which in most places would be beyond a packed house, of 135,000 people who were just starving for that race. And it went off not only in grand style, and it finished in grand style. You could not have scripted a better return to major sports. I know that wasn't the first event back, but to have that many people, that is the Derby was like the step, but this is the completion to me. It's like, we're back. 135,000 people outside having fun, enjoying it, and it was a great spectacle. What a hell of a race. Elio Castroneves winning his fourth Indy 500. I think I saw yesterday he ended up winning $1.8 million, which is not terribly. It's down, I guess, because of the people, the stands and all that, but just a great spectacle in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was kind of what they hoped it would be something that's the first event where there's really a ton of fans in the stands. You talked about the Kentucky Derby, but 135,000 is a little beyond that, significantly beyond that. And so it was great to see everyone back out there. As you said, the weather was beautiful, so that really helped as well. And just the spectacle of all of it, having it here in Indiana was great. And then Castroneves, who's kind of a fan favorite, of course, going out there and winning his fourth, joining a really, really elite club of guys who have done that 4 times. That was kind of the cherry on top. So it was a great way to kind of get back in the swing of things, and that was just kind of a storybook way to do it this weekend.
The only thing that was kind of aggravating was when he did his famous Spider-Man climb on the wall, that stupid team owner. I was like, dude, get out of the way. Let him have a moment. He is like, no, as soon as he started doing it, he was like right beside him and had to be hanging on him. And it was like he was not going to miss an opportunity to be in any picture that they took of it. And I'm like, dude, they want a picture of Elio, not you. Nobody knows or cares who you are. But boy, he was not letting go of that moment for nothing. But that's funny. But yeah, it was just a great spectacle. Now we get a little break. Like I said, it's recruiting season, not a lot of sports going on. Normally this will be AAU season, not a ton of attendance wise there. So, but you've got the summer sports, the 10 caps, the minor league hockey teams, the baseball teams, whether it's the Indy 11 or Louisville FC or the Indians and Indianapolis' AAA team. Louisville's got a AAA team. What is your single A team in Fort Wayne?
And we do a single A team, high.
Getting all that back out, man. I mean, even those single A teams in a town like Fort Wayne, that's fun. That's summer fun right there. That is family fun, inexpensive family fun for the entire summer. Where you, especially if you've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, man, there's only so much you can do, and they need those inexpensive things to do, and it's great to see those back.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was great for the Tin Caps. They were back from a road trip, and it was the first game of the season where their capacity was up to 40%, up from 30%. Later in the month, they're going to have it up to 60%. So it's slowly climbing back, and then they're going to have the first fireworks display of the season on Saturday. So, it's really getting back to normal here. You're going to start to have some larger crowds, kids running around. The actual in Fort Wayne, the baseball stadium is usually open during the day for people who want to walk or jog on the concourse and kind of just roam around. And that hasn't been the case since March of 2020. Yesterday, it reopened for the first time. So it's really signs that things are getting back to normal here, and people are going to start coming back and getting back outside. It's going to be great.
The Indiana Basketball Coaches Association has set its showcase, its Underclass Showcase. I think it's the top 100. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I remember. The 19th IBC IHSA Top 100 Underclass Showcase is set for June 18th for the girls, June 19th for the boys at Ben Davis High School. The Underclass Showcase, which is staged by the Indiana Basketball Coaches Association, will fall during the evaluation period on the boys' side, which will allow Division I college coaches to attend. Pretty big deal. That's what we're talking about. Those guys getting out, see these kids in open space playing on their own without direction. Haven't been able to do that for quite some time. So in Indiana, of course, always producing a ton of talent. You know that in that top 100 is going to be a lot of kids that's being looked at by a lot of different people. So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. We're going to have a whole bunch of Division I coaches descending on Indianapolis that day. It'll be Indiana will be the center of college basketball again for at least one day. And hopefully that'll be the case more again in the future. But yeah, of course, Indiana commit CJ Gunn. I'm almost certain will be there after leading his team to the cusp of the state championship this year, lost in the championship game. But of course, he'll be there. Jalen Washington will be there from Gary, the top recruit in the 2022 class out of Indiana, who's being pursued heavily by Indiana and Purdue, North Carolina, a couple of many other schools. So those are two guys that will highlight that event almost certainly. But yeah, they will be an excuse for Division I coaches to visit Indianapolis once again and get to see a lot of Indiana talent.
Well, and like I said, they haven't been able to do it for so long. But you mentioned some names that are uncommitted. Jalen Washington, one of those names, a big name. That's a gigantic name. So there's going to be a lot of people there just for him, but for a lot of other people. Who's available? That's a good question. That's a name, but besides him, who are some of the other bigger names that are not committed that are in that top 100?
That's the thing is there are a lot of guys who have already committed because they weren't sure when official visits we're going to start back up again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the question here is how many of those guys are going to remain committed, so that's going to be the question going forward here, because obviously not many of them have signed a letter of intent. None of them signed a letter of intent yet. So that's going to be the storyline to watch play out here over the next several months. Of course, CJ Gunn, he remained committed to Indiana out of Lawrence North. He remained committed to Indiana after Mike Woodson took over, basically had a conversation with Woodson, and then said he affirmed his commitment because he liked the way Woodson, his whole deal, his whole vibe. And so that was a good sign for Indiana. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that holds for some of these players who now they have coaches seeing them in person. Now they have coaches. Now they can take official visits and things like that. Of course, Indiana, I always think Indiana has, of course, I'm an Indiana alum, so I'm slightly biased. I think Indiana has an advantage when official visits are possible because their campus is so beautiful. They have Assembly Hall that they can show off. It's hard to show those advantages over Zoom. And so I always think Indiana has an advantage when official visits are possible. And we'll start to see if maybe some of those guys start to give Indiana another look, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, the 122 boys are expected to participate in that. And it is anywhere from 22, 23, 24 graduation classes from those years. So it's going to be that's going to be fun. It's going to just be fun to see that, to be out in that, and just a lot of talent there, man. It's hard to pick out names as you're going down through there. There's big Isaiah Davis, 6'9" kid from Zionsville. A lot of size in this as you look through there. A lot of guards, a ton of guards. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing mostly guards. There's Aaron Humphrey from Tinley at 6'7". But man, the guards, it's like it is mostly guards, brother. This is going to be whoever's got the big man. It's going to be kind of fun because I'm seeing a Garrett Shippert from Evansville Wrights at 6'7".
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, Jalen Washington, who we talked about, is 6'9". He is the big guy in this class. But yes, the rest of the class is very guard heavy. Tay Davis from Warren Central is 6'6". He's committed to Louisville. And then, yeah, those are some of the big guys. Just about everyone else that is a strong player in this class in Indiana is a guard. Of course, Fletcher Lawyer from up here in Fort Wayne he's a guard, plays for Homestead, committed to Purdue. So, this is a guard-heavy class for the Indiana recruiting scene after having its two best players in 2021 as big men with Trey Kaufman-Renn and Caleb First. So it's a little bit of a difference there.
Well, Aaron Matus will join us today, and we'll talk to him about this and lots more. As a matter of fact, he may be joining us next, so stay tuned. We got to take a break.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking...
So it's
a message about Kyle Neddenrip.
Yeah, what did he say?
He said he asked if he could skip today. He's driving.
Of course he can.
Okay,
Thanks that we have Aaron. We have Aaron to fill that in, so
which works out nicely. So
who's Aaron?
Aaron Matus.
I've heard the name. What does he do?
He's an IU grad actually, but he was sports director at Fox 41 in Louisville. They brought him in to be the sports director, and then they did budget cuts and let him go after 3 years. Jack legs.
Okay.
Crazy crap. He wants to stay in the area, so he's trying to find a job maybe out of TV.
Gotcha.
Hey, I'm going up to do look at the bearded one.
There it is.
Oh man, look at the bearded one. What's the hat?
It's pond hockey up in Colorado.
See, man, we get these. Damn, everybody's got great hats but me now. I just got old regular hats.
This event was sweet. It was at base of Keystone Mountain.
Look at the shirt. We got the whole thing going here today.
Mighty Ducks.
Dylan, you're sucking hot tit, man.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I didn't get the memo that we're doing graphic tees here.
Pink Floyd going and a quack and.
That's all I got these days. Unemployed, I just throw a hat on and a graphic.
You look unemployed. You're doing very good. You've got the look down.
You got no clue. Look at this.
Oh, I do have a clue. Trust me. That's the great thing about radio, having a face for radio, a voice for newspapers, and an intelligence level for yearbook.
All right, here we go. Bringing us back.
Has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Hope your day is staying dry, at least, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Wednesday as Aaron Matus joins us. Dylan Sinn's with us as well. What did I used to call you? I used to butcher your last name. Was it Mattis? Was that what I said?
Yeah, but that's it's not butchering it. That's what most people go to. Mattis, Modest. I don't even correct people anymore.
It was Modest. I think it was Modest.
Yeah.
That's what it was I said. I remember I used to it's Matus, by the way. But it reminds me of if you ever go to Las Vegas, it's if you're from there, it's Nevada. They say Nevada, not Nevada. And but I don't know what got me thinking about that last night, but I was like, man, I used to butcher his name every time. But not as bad as Dustin DePirick, who when he first used to come on, and he didn't correct me.
Yeah. When
he first came on, I think I called him Doperack. I did. I was like, man. Let's see. Worst in my last TV job was in Washington, and there's a bunch of Native American town names in the state of Washington. I'm trying to think of, I think it may have been Wenatchee, but if it was, I would have said like Wenatchee or something like that. But there was some town I remember butchering.
Growing up in Minnesota, we had the town names up there are crazy. And I'll never forget when my second city I worked in at a TV was in Champaign, Illinois. And, when you don't want to butcher the athletes' names when you're in a new town because it quickly takes away your credibility. You're obviously the new guy. And one of the first weekends that I had turned over the weekend show to me, Illinois' tight end was named, one of those, top 50 lists for the tight end of the year award, which at the time I thought was a big deal, which I've now realized those top 50 lists in the summer are ridiculous. But I had to sit there and try to figure out how to pronounce Michael Manawanui.
Oh, yeah.
On my first weekend on the job there, it was like, even the pronunciators don't give you a chance at that one.
You have that one still, but that's just like, oh, man. On Indiana's football team right now, C.O. Nofoa got to Tatoa. Yeah. I don't know if that's correct, but it's kind of close, and I'm sticking with my story, and that's it. But see, Joey, we was talking earlier about all the different minor league teams. Joey Votto, Tim says Joey Votto is going to be on assignment in Louisville for the Reds tonight. Oh, wow. There you go. As DH. But yeah, when I was growing up, man, the Cardinals AAA team was in Louisville, and I was in Southern Indiana, and it was minor league heaven. He was a carnival barker. Minor league baseball was gigantic in Louisville back then, but they had a ton of guys come. Andy Van Slyke and all those great Cardinals of that time were all coming through there, and it was amazing. Vince Coleman, all of them. It was just unbelievable the talent that came through that minor league level there. But we were just talking earlier about the Indy 500, Aaron, and the Derby was kind of the first thing of getting people out. But the 500 seemed to be the thing that really just says, boom, sports is back, baby. Because it was just people just loving it and being out in the sun and forget about the hats and the dresses. It's just about being out at a sporting event. And but it just 135,000 people. It was like a welcome back, and it was a great welcome back. It was I wasn't even there, and I was just like, man, it was just amazing to watch.
I was at the Oaks, not the Derby, and thought it was terrific to go and do that and be in a crowd again. But you could still get a sense that it wasn't quite the same. And then watching the Derby the next day, I thought some of the camera angles looked almost normal, which was cool to see. But there's no doubt I almost watched the 500 more for that than anything else, just to kind of see what it looked like. It's something you completely took for granted before March of 2020. What does a full grandstand look like? What does a full crowd look like? So I thought that was so neat just to kind of see the cars coming around, turn 3, I guess, and you'd see the whole stands behind them full. And then I thought, if nothing else, the storyline of Elio winning was so perfect because he goes nuts and he's playing to the crowd. It was just like the perfect winner for this Indy 500.
Absolutely. I mean, a 4-time winner. I'd say you're never going to see one again because you would think it's a difficult thing to do. I don't care what you're talking about. Look how long it took him to do it. And you look at the other 3 guys, they did it at a time before you had the international drivers in there. And it was a different, not saying that it wasn't hard. Of course, it's always been hard, but it's harder now. And hell, he didn't even have a ride hardly. He was basically out of the sport, relegated to being an old man. And he pointed that out, Dylan. He pointed out Tom Brady. He pointed out Phil Mickelson and himself. And it's true. That's a major deal. These guys, all 3, just won 3 of the biggest prizes in all of sports. And they're all in their 40s. That says something to me.
Phil's 50.
Yeah, Phil is 50. Yeah. I do wonder whether there's something to that of guys are maybe some of the ones that have come through the pandemic, the feeling the best, or some of the older guys who've had a little bit of time to kind of train and get their minds right, maybe. So that's something that we'll have to see whether that's something that continues going forward. Phil will have another chance to show it at the U.S. Open here coming up.
Phil should have played in the Senior Open, the PGA Open. It was the week after the PGA.
Yeah,
he should have just went right in and played that. He was on a roll. He probably would have won that, and that would have been the first time and only time ever that someone wins back-to-back events that are majors back, and he could have done that easily. Why did he not do that?
Didn't he played and missed the cut on the PGA Tour, and when I saw he missed the cut, I was like, that's the most predictable thing ever, that he would go and play some tournament that doesn't matter, and just like, I'm not into this one.
Yeah. I mean, that's I would have, just for history's sake, I would have done that. You're never going to get that opportunity again, ever. I'm sorry, he's not going to win the PGA again. It's not going to happen. But man, that would have been an unbelievable thing to be able to do. That's something that has never happened in that sport and will never happen again. Maybe in any sport, to win a regular tournament.
Oldest winner in major championship history, and Jimmy Coyle's asking for more. I mean, give him an inch.
Hey man, when you got to make hay when the sun's shining, baby. And the sun was shining bright on him this weekend. But yeah, that's incredible. What have you been doing? What's new with you?
Well, for me, you can probably see my background here. I'm sitting in the rain at swim practice this morning. So now that the school's out for summer, we're running the kids around. And, the latest and the best update I have in terms of, I guess, Indiana sports would be I sat there hovering over season tickets for football last week, but didn't pull the trigger. So maybe you two could talk me into just going ahead and doing it. But
well, it's funny you bring that up because I was doing the same thing just to have them to give away as giveaways.
Yeah.
For the show. And
it's so crazy how
I'm going to convince you to go ahead and do that because now's the time to do it. Seriously, you better get them now before they become more popular because people are sitting. I think people are sitting back and waiting right now on Indiana football season tickets. And I'm like, you know what? Probably now's the time. I better grab me a couple just to have them because as the years go by, you kind of you get pushed down a little bit into better seats as long as you stay there. And I'm like, now's the time maybe to do that.
I will say it's a good season to have season tickets because not only do you have what's going to be likely a top 10 opponent in the non-conference season in Cincinnati, you get Ohio State at home, and that's going to be an extremely fun game as well. An Ohio State team that might be down just a little bit relative to where it's been the last few years. If Indiana is going to upset Ohio State, it's going to be this year. So might want to get on that.
And it's going to be interesting to see that game sells out more often than not because of Ohio State fans, and it would be awesome to see if it sells out without the much help from people out east. It's crazy. I've got no dog in the fight here, so I'm not being paid by IU to say this, but I got 3 kids, under 18, under 10. It's $90 to get a youth season ticket for the whole season. I was like, that's why I tell my wife, we got to do this. And she's the one saying kind of hold off right now, but we'll get this done, guys. Don't worry about it.
Pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Well, it was cool. Now, when they had that miniature football deal in the end zone before the whatever Fred Glass's deal was called, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was, I got to say, that was one of the coolest things that I've seen, having a miniaturized football field down there. That was pretty daggone cool.
It was cool, but
kids.
It was like, you mentioned minor league baseball earlier. That's kind of what it felt like. Hey, bring the kids to the game, have a ball out in the outfield at the playground.
That's what it was. That's what it was, unfortunately. But Indiana's got to move. All right, Indiana has to move past that. It's a great point. You've got to move past that to be considered to be in this serious big-time football. They've got to get the parking out of the parking lots and tailgating into the state. And then the damn students have to stay in there through the fourth quarter and not leaving after halftime, which product on the field will have a lot to do with that. And that should not be a problem this year. But even in games they're winning, they need to stick around. That leaving with a quarter to go, it's a bad look. It's not good for your own team. The team still needs to play. You need reliance, but it's going to be a good home season. They just announced the kickoff time for Western Kentucky, as a matter of fact, today. It's going to be an 8:00 game on CBS Sports Network. So that's a rare road game in a non-conference game, but that's probably like where they played 3 at home and they got to give one back to Western. But last time they played,
I hate that game, by the way. I hate that that's on the schedule this year. It seems like a going on the road to Western Kentucky. It's like you beat them, you get nothing out of it, you lose it. It's total disaster.
Especially after playing Cincinnati the week before.
Yeah,
it is the trap game of all trap games going down there. I absolutely agree with you.
The last time they played there was like 39-35 when Kevin Wilson was here.
Yeah,
but Jeff Brom was the head coach at Western then. Did you know that?
Was that Brom?
Yeah.
That was the last year before he went to Purdue.
Okay, here's some irony. The last time they played Western, Jeff Brom was the coach who's now at Purdue. They're playing Idaho, who is coached by Bobby Petrino's brother.
Yeah, Paul.
So there's a little more irony Jeff Brom replaced Bobby Petrino at Western and yada, yada. We thought he would replace him at Louisville, but that did not happen. I wonder if he regrets that now.
I think he's going to get another shot here at some point. I don't think Scott Satterfield is long for that job, so he'll get another chance.
My thing is, I thought that the reason he didn't take it there's 2 reasons. Number one, he didn't want to follow Petrino in that mess and look like – I just don't think he wanted to follow Petrino. And it was a lateral move, money-wise. But I think that he was wanting and thinking that Notre Dame job was going to come open at the end of his contract time at Purdue, and I always he's a Catholic boy from he went to Trinity in Louisville, and Notre Dame has got a big Louisville connection. Paul Horning, the Golden Boys from there. And that's just my guess. That's just all I've always thought that was in his back of his mind. And why not? It's the plum jobs of college football.
Right. I think some coaches have kind of moved off of that now. Brian Kelly doesn't really seem like he's going anywhere.
He doesn't.
Yeah, he's had this for a while. It was like, well, how long is he going to be in this job? They're not winning as much as Notre Dame fans would like. They're winning a little bit, not as much as they would like. But the last 5 years, they've been one of the best teams. They've been basically the best team that hasn't won a national championship in college football, maybe outside of Georgia. So they are set for a while here, and maybe if they go 8-4 this year, that some of that talk starts up a little bit again, because this will be Kelly's 12th year, and you wonder maybe how close he's getting to retirement. But yeah, it's not a job that seems like it'll be coming open in the next 2 or 3 years here.
Aaron, you'll appreciate this. He's our Washington State flag that's on College Game Day. He has been a Washington State flag on virtually every broadcast, but he was engineer operator. Yeah, I guess board op, like overnights when I was anchoring overnight.
Oh, really?
And one of my favorite stories is, it's all night long. It's all overnight. You're doing overnight, and so it's like every half an hour. And so at 3:30 in the morning or whatever, you're like putting your head down, you're bored and resting. And I did that once and dozed off. And I'm sitting at the desk where I did the hits on the camera, and the camera was mounted in front of us, and it would just come on automatically at the hit. You would know when they're coming. But I had fallen asleep and woke up and knew I missed. I'm like, oh my God. And I'd take off running back to the back. I'm like, tell me you didn't let that go on. Tell me you didn't let that. He goes, man, I couldn't stop it. It was controlled. And I was like freaking out. And then he's like, oh no, man, I went to commercial. But I was like, good Lord, I thought my career was over right then.
I was going to say, I hope that's on tape if there's just a sleeping anchor at a desk somewhere.
Man, yeah, that could have been. But he saved me, so thank you, Glenn, as always. I'll tell that story a lot. But a couple things getting hit up on. Yeah, Tim mentioned that Tony Stewart climbed the fence back in 2005, but he was copying Elio. So, yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Let's see. Alan asked, what do we have for sure coming for official visits this month? Well, in the month of June, go to thehoosier.com because there's a list 8 deep for that, I think. Former IU player Jovan Swan signs with the Ravens. Romeo ended his season with a career-high 17 points as the Celtics are eliminated on their Game 5 loss to the Brooklyn Nets. But that's great news for Romeo. 17 points.
He was getting credit for his defense as well. Finally seemed to get some consistent run there, and especially on a high-profile stage like that. It's good to see because it's been one thing after another for him basically since he came to Bloomington with the nagging injuries and stuff that have held him back, and he just seems like he's had a tough time getting rolling. So that was good to see him get some run there in the playoffs.
Where are you sitting? Just so you can you pulled off so you don't kindly so we don't have any road noise or anything.
I told you I'm sitting outside of Hazelwood Middle School in New Albany.
Oh,
you saved me from having to sit in a hot, humid pool.
Oh,
so that's why I was like, take the 920 slot. I'll take the 920 slot.
Tell Miss Johnson we said hello.
Okay.
It's too late, I guess. You've already dropped him off, but
yeah, Courtney, she's still waiting for you to. Her and Jeff are still waiting for you to come pick up all that clothing you left in their camper.
Is there 4 shirts? Did you throw those in the fire? I was like, man, I still got like 20 more of those. Let me throw those away too. But yeah, how was your weekend, by the way, Dylan? Memorial Day weekend. Did you do anything fun?
It was great. So I was on vacation all of last week, and I was in California with a buddy. We went to go see a Dodgers game, and over the weekend we saw the Dodgers play the Giants at Dodger Stadium. So that was something that I checked off my list, which was fantastic. Anyone, highly recommend Dodger Stadium. I've been to Wrigley, I've been to Fenway, I've been to Yankee Stadium. Dodger Stadium is right up there with all of them. Beautiful view of downtown Los Angeles in the background. So
had my chance. I was out there twice. No idea why I did not do that. A friend of mine, actually, Aaron, who I interned with when I was doing the intern thing, is he hosts the Dodgers post-game shows and anchors the weekend on ABC7 out there, John Hartung. But he was interned with his uncle is Mike Hart over in Evansville, Weather.
Yep.
Used to be a WLKY, but yeah. And I didn't go. And
Giants, didn't they play a crazy game that weekend, Dylan? Did you see didn't they play a wild one? Is that the game you were at?
No, I went to one. The Giants won 11-6 at the one I went to. Albert Pujols hit a home run, which was blast from the past. But yeah, it was not the.
Was that his first Dodger home run?
I believe it was his second. But yeah, it was kind of an old man moment for him as well. That was going with our theme of old guys coming through after a while. So yeah, it was fun to watch.
Hey, I might not be as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was, right? Absolutely. Hey, man, either we can just go long here or might as well just go a little longer here. Football. We're talking about season tickets, but it's an exciting time for Indiana football fans, but football period, because of this season could be spectacular. And I've said that Indiana could be 7-0 when Ohio State comes. And, of course, they could be. And you could say could, woulda, shoulda. The difference maker this year is going to be the crowd. And it's not Indiana's talent. I'm thinking it's the crowds. Playing at Iowa now is a whole different ballgame than it was going to be than it would have been last year. Last year in that situation with no crowd, I give Indiana the benefit of the doubt in this game. But on the road, that's going to be a tough way to start the season.
Well, yeah, and you said they could start 7-0. I look at the schedule. I'm like, they got to get out of the gates 1-1 basically with that Cincinnati Iowa game. I mean, I know that's not.
We got Idaho in between.
I know, but they have to at least split those two, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
just because you drop those two, and then I mean. I assume they're going to beat Idaho, but then you got that trap game we talked about on the schedule. There is a doomsday scenario out there for me in terms of how the season could start. And the only reason my head goes there is because we are talking about Indiana football after all.
But actually, you see that a lot. I mean, that's the difference between having a spectacular season and having a good season is it takes one stub your toe one time.
Well, look at Penn State last year. I mean,
because the problem is what Aaron's saying. Indiana. So you have if they go 0-2, if they do go 0-2 in those Cincinnati and Iowa games, they lose both of those. They are 2-2 at best after the non-conference. Then they start the Big Ten schedule with a trip to Penn State, which just announced yesterday that they are going to be full capacity. So they're going to have 100,000 fans, 107,000 fans, screaming down at them for a team that is not going to take them lightly after losing in Bloomington next year. There's a good chance they're 2-3 going into the middle of October, and that's not exactly where you want to be, So as Aaron said, getting those two against Cincinnati and Iowa is going to be absolutely crucial, or at least one of them.
Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say like that. There was a girl my last job with Penn State fan, and I'm telling you, they do not and have not forgotten about the reach from Michael Penix.
Did they forget about?
That's going to be a nasty game.
Ask them if they forgot about the two targeting calls that weren't called in 2 years ago.
They forgot those.
It's funny how they forget that right off the bat. Yeah, with a full stadium. So the reach, that was a touchdown, man.
I thought he was in, but I'm with you, Jim. I think I'm as excited as I've been for a season. I mean, I was super pumped last year, and then I think most of us had to temper expectations, not because of anything that was going on the field. It just was such an odd year. You just had to kind of take what you could get. And then they come back and play, and it was terrific. That was fun to watch last year. It was, as an IU grad, I was as proud of that program as I've been, or maybe that Hepner year. So yeah, now how do you deal with what are full blown expectations? It's looking like we're going to have a very normal football season with a team that is going to be ranked going into the season, and no shortage of challenges on that schedule. I do think that I'd love to talk to some ADs and administrators about that Cincinnati, Indiana game when it was scheduled at the time versus what it's turned into this year is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, neither team worth a snot. This was Indiana filling another slot. Another. Idaho is kind of above the grade, to be honest with you, for normal non-conference play. It's not that they're great, but it's they're you've got a coach that's been there for a long time, a program that's had some continuity. So that's not the type of programs that usually play, but you have to upgrade your non-conference if you want to become a bigger player in the game. You still need bigger wins. And a win over Cincinnati, that's going to be gigantic. It's just unfortunate that it comes in a year when you're starting the Big Ten season, or you're starting your season with a Big Ten game on the road, which is highly unusual. Why that's going on, I have no idea either, Dylan. Why is that even happening?
I mean, that's a great question. We know that Indiana had started the season with Big Ten games before, of course. They did play Ohio State in the season opener back in, I believe it was 2016. Which was a great game, but yeah, it's kind of a way to start the season with a little bit of an Indiana showcase right off the bat. I mean that's going to be, if Indiana goes out and wins that game, which we hope they will, obviously, then that is going to be something where people are like, remember Indiana, remember how good they were last year. Well, looks like they could be good again this year. And if they lose, it's going to be a whole lot of same old Indiana. So that first game, there is no time to kind of sleepwalk into the season. They are going to have to be full go from the start. And I think Tom Allen will have them ready, but you never know until game day.
I'll take it a step further even, and this might be going too far down the rabbit hole in terms of the doldrums, but I think people were saying same old Indiana already after the bowl game. And say what you will about a weird bowl game and a weird bowl season and how it doesn't really matter unless you're in the playoff. But I think people want to say that about IU football, and the Iowa game is a chance to really reverse that early, as opposed to coming off the bowl game loss, lose at Iowa. It would really start some of that narrative up. Now I get the feeling, what is it? Earmuffs and blinders. I'm not sure it's going to matter inside the locker room very much, but national on a narrative if we're talking about the national narrative, I think people would go there pretty quick if they lose that Iowa game.
I think that's exactly right. And I think one thing I'll quibble with there is I think it does matter within the locker room. He can talk about earmuffs and blinders all he wants, but we saw when they got snubbed for one of the major bowl games last year, and they got stuck in the Outback Bowl, which is still a great bowl for Indiana football, but they thought they deserved more. They thought they got snubbed by the College Football Playoff Committee. You could tell it bothered them. Yep. Tom Allen went to bat for his guys and talked about it a little bit extensively.
But they didn't respond the right way. That's the problem.
Exactly. They didn't. And
it reminded me of Louisville and Florida in the Sugar Bowl. I think it was in whenever Louisville went to the Sugar Bowl.
When Teddy Bridgewater was
the Bridgewater.
Exactly. Yes. Florida was just PO'd, and they was like, man, it took them a half a game to get into the game. But yeah, Indiana was different in that scenario, but you're right. But yeah, they didn't respond the way but it's new territory for them.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Yep.
But yeah, Dylan, I agree with you, man. They didn't, but they've got to get to getting that win it's become such a burden for Tom Allen too, that bowl win. They should have won the Pinstripe Bowl. That was a little crap. They should have beat Tennessee. They should have beat Ole Miss. They should have won all of those games. That's the problem. They didn't. But, hey, you can stick around. You can stick around, but you've been here forever. You can go. We got to hit a break. But I love having you on, brother. What's coming up next for you? What's just going on? Oh, well, Tim asked if those swim classes are for anyone, because he's got a 2-year-old that he'd love to get in there?
Yeah, the Floyd County Hurricanes, giving them a little plug here on the on Jimmy's show. You got to be a little older than 2. I think our 5-year-old was scheduled to get in the pool for the first time last year, but that season got canceled. So not quite ready for 2-year-olds on the Hurricanes yet.
No Hurricanes, man. Go Hurricanes.
Pick them up, so I'm going to get going.
You. All right, brother. You have a good one. Appreciate you.
Hey, good talking with you guys.
Aaron
Thanks,
Matus
Aaron.
joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Dylan and myself will be right back after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for a relaxing night with
the Pistons hired John Beeline.
I did see that. Yeah, he's a special assistant to the GM or something like that. The kind of job where it's like it's a lifetime achievement award, basically.
Well, why to him? I mean,
I
guess they just love him in Michigan, I guess.
They really do. I will. Michigan thinks the world of John Beeline.
Well, as they should. I mean,
he was the one that took that program. They had not been good. It's really since the Fab Five when he took over that program. They'd had a couple of good seasons thrown in there, but Tommy Amaker, who is a very good coach, he has done a great job at Harvard. But he was not able to get that program back going after they had some NCAA sanctions. And Beeline came in. It took him 2 or 3 years. He really got them rolling again, got them to be an NCAA tournament team consistently, got them to the national title game twice. So, yeah, he revived that program into where it is now. And Juwan Howard has really picked up the pieces and kind of run with it. So, yeah, they love him up there in Michigan. And there were some questions about whether what that would look like, whether he would actually end up back on Howard's staff or as some kind of a Thad Matta type, the way Matta is with the IU, but that obviously hasn't happened. So they do love him up there in Michigan.
Oh, damn, I don't have an email for him anymore. It's been pretty quiet with Thad Matta.
It has. We've got to wonder what he's up to behind the scenes there. But yes, it has been a little bit quiet on that front.
Actually, it's been quiet from most of the guys, but Mike Woody was nice enough to talk to us the other day.
Saw Zach Osterman actually just today had a story on Dane Fife.
I just saw that clip pop up. Yeah,
coming back. So have to read that one through. Fife, of course, is he used to be the head coach up here at PFW, so we know him. We are very familiar with him. He was IPFW then, so he is he's well known here. He got that program, shepherded it, I believe, into Division I, or at least was part of that
Coming
transition.
back.
For just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this rainy Wednesday, but it is a Wednesday. It means we've reached the halfway point. Looking at, we talked earlier, Dylan Sinn with me as always from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. The top 100 IBCA event that's coming up, basketball event, the coaching staff, man, that's a lot of, they got a ton of coach. They got as many coaches as they got players. My gosh. But see, that's the associate director. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That cannot be right. There cannot be. Is this a nomination thing? Is that what is nominated to be the coach?
That is a great question. I am not sure exactly how that works, but that's really, I mean, it could be that they just want guys, players have as much instruction as possible. I'm not sure. But,
well, I guess with 110 kids, though. I mean, 100 kids. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So it has to be much larger than a traditional basketball staff. And it's a good way for coaches to kind of get to know players as well.
Southport. Eric Brand
happen.
from Southport is there. Mark Galloway from Culver Academy. Jimmy Howell's retired from Lapel. Jared Howell from Zionsville. Let's see. Washington's coach, Gene Miller. Warsaw's coach, Matt Moore. Just trying to look down here. Josh Thompson from Bar Reeve. Ryan Varga from South Bend, Washington. But that's going to be an interesting event, man. I can't wait for that. Just to get out and to see it again.
I mean, again, it's going to be great to see a ton of coaches back in Indianapolis, right? Like Indianapolis has hosted so many events and so many big basketball games over the years. Coaches haven't been able to be here or anywhere for a long time, and now they're going to be back, and it's going to be they're going to all descend on Ben Davis High School. College coaches coming in and saying hi to players. I remember it was a huge event up here in Fort Wayne in 2019. We had Blackhawk versus Homestead. It was Caleb First at Blackhawk and then Luke Goody from Homestead, who was going to Illinois. We had Matt Painter here. We had Roy Williams here. We had Brett Underwood here, all in the same night. Archie Miller was not here. I believe Indiana was playing the next day, so he did not make it. But yeah, it was many different Division I coaches all in the same tiny little gym, and it was just kind of a spectacle. And Tom Izzo was there, and we kind of missed that kind of atmosphere where it's like, look at all the coaches.
And hopefully we're getting back to that. And man, oh man, it's could not be any. It's funny. I mean, hopefully, I think we all appreciate a lot of things a little more than we did before, because how easily it was taken away, how easily we lost all that, the access to that. It was nuts how quickly it had just happened, and then boom. And it's been 2 years that we've lost in essence. So yeah, man, I hope we all appreciate all this and let's get back to it and be respectful. We talked about this fan behavior yesterday in the NBA games. It's just unbelievable. Stop with this. Stop. Yeah. I don't care what level it is, if it's high school, college, or pros, man. It's just idiocy. A ticket does not give you the right to be an idiot. You can do that outside, but not in there.
Well, I mean, you see some people that are kind of trying to make not excuses exactly, but kind of try to write it off a little bit as well. Fans they haven't been able to go to games for a while. They're going to be exuberant when they come back into games, and I'm not buying any of that.
Nope.
You are going to games. We've seen in the last year that going to games is a privilege. It is not a right. So when you go to a game, act like you're an adult and you've been there before. You know what I mean? Maybe you haven't been there before, but if you haven't, look up how you're supposed to act at a game if you don't know. It really shouldn't be that difficult not to harass the players or run on the court like the guy did in Philadelphia the other night. Just be a fan.
A tackle. How about that tackle, though?
Security was all over it. They were not having that at all.
Perfect tackle, though.
Formed tackle. Guy could have been. He could have taught a clinic at a high school about how to bring a guy down.
I guarantee you that guy went. It was awesome. It was absolutely perfect. The dude went down feet first.
The crowd reaction to that was absolutely perfect as well. They lost it. It was one of the highlights of the night in that game, and it was a playoff game.
And that's the thing. It could be at a moment to where it is of great importance. And when you're an athlete or a player, especially in a moment like that, a playoff situation to where you're locked in, that's just not cool. I mean, it's never cool to do it, but a playoff game, man, that could alter a series. We've seen one basket, one foul, one whatever change an entire series. One thing could change that. So, but just throwing popcorn on people, spitting on people, utterly ridiculous behavior. And there is no excuse for it. COVID is not an excuse for it. There is none. idiocy has been around for a long time. It was around long before COVID, and it'll be around long after it's gone. Unfortunately, but that's all I can say about it. That's just an idiocy behavior, personally.
Yeah. But now I think it's more that people are like they're relearning how to act at these games, and most people are doing just fine. They're figuring it out. But some people are just thinking, oh, well, it's an opportunity for me to do whatever because I've been inside for however long and I want to act up. And like, no, be an adult. It shouldn't be that difficult.
Hey, Bob Kravitz. Speaking of adults, the biggest adult in the room will join us next. Bob Kravitz from The Athletic when we come back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're
right
looking
back,
for
Jim. You're right back.
How easy is this?
Pretty easy.
I mean, seriously, this is good stuff. Oh, I didn't get in touch with Jeff Sagrin, did I?
Oh, yeah. I forgot you mentioned that yesterday.
Search. Gosh. Say, gee, listen to that flipping rain come down, man.
Yeah, it's coming down pretty heavy here, too.
I thought I sent that. Did I not send it? Come on. Nope. Did I not send him a letter? Are you kidding me? I had to send that. Yeah, there it is. Did I not respond? I don't remember. Mother flicker.
Anheuser-Busch to buy America a round of beer if 70% of adults get their first vaccine by July 4th. Enter to win by uploading a pic of yourself in front of your favorite bar. Did I see something, too, in West Virginia that they're doing like a gun raffle if you get your vaccine? That might have been a joke that I saw, but I saw something that said that.
That's one way to do it, I guess.
All right, I'm going to bring us back. Obviously, Bob isn't here yet, but hopefully he will be. If not, I'll shoot him a text.
Coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Hope everybody's having a relaxed day because there's not a lot you can do unless you're at work or inside because it's coming down. Dylan, I shared this yesterday, but it's worth sharing again, who I got to meet last Thursday or Friday. Daggone, I keep getting the wrong address. Jeff Sagrin just happened to be at a place where I was. He lives in Bloomington, of course. But just so funny that name strikes a chord in any male that is probably 30 to 50 years old. You just know who that name is.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest funniest thing, because there was 4 people in there about the same age, and all 4 of the guys said the same thing. Oh man, well, when I was a kid, the first thing you do is go to the sports section, you open it, what's the Sagarin rating? What's the Sagarin ratings? It's just a funny thing, something that is still, it's one of the few things that's still kind of there from the old days of sports.
Yeah, I mean, you can look on the Herald website. I'm not sure how much you use Herald for basketball or football, quite frankly, but he has Sagarin ratings on there for when sectional pairings are released. He has Sagarin ratings on there for who's favored, what percentage chance they have to win the sectional, what percentage chance they have to win the regional. He has all that on there, and it's really a treasure trove of information. That's just kind of one state. And Sagarin's all over the place. It's a fantastic resource for anyone who kind of wants to handicap games and whatnot going forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure that when he arrived at MIT in Boston that sports was what he thought he was going to become world famous for. I mean, his name is world famous. He was the first to do this, to my knowledge, right? I mean, to really incorporate that in a way of that bettors use this. Everybody used this. It was the first that I can remember. I mean, there may have been some rudimentary ones, but someone of his intellect, there's no way anything that NCAA has ever done can come close, because I just said a word intellect that you cannot say at the same time with NCAA. So, obviously no involvement there. Why would the NCAA not hire someone like Jeff Sagarin? Why in the world would they not? Well, they represent nothing but schools that have the greatest minds in the world, but yet they rely on people like Mark Emmert. Please explain that to someone, starting with me. Why not take these guys that are whatever school they are and say, hey, let's put 10 of you all in a room and come up with the system to use. You guys are the smart people. But no, that would make sense.
Yeah. Maybe they did reach out to him at some point, and he was interested in working for the NCAA, but we don't know how that worked. But what was it like actually meeting him? What did you guys talk about?
Just a normal dude, man. I just said, hey, and just started talking. It was nothing out of the ordinary. It was normal conversation. He was just there. He's a normal dude, and it was just, I just said, it was a pleasure to meet you, but he gets that all the time, which is weird. I know, I'm sure that's because he's still getting this. This has been going on for what, 40 years now?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, he's been there forever. Just plugging away.
Yeah, and it's not like he gets that every day because he's in Bloomington and he looks like any Joe off the street. But still 40 years later, he's still getting that. Oh, hey, oh my gosh, it's Jeff Sagarin. All you have to do is say the name. You don't know the face because you don't know what the face is, but you know the name. That's what's funny. He's known by name, but I guarantee you, very few people could pick him out of a lineup. Do you know what he looks like?
I genuinely don't. And maybe that's because I'm a little bit younger than the demographic.
Because they never put his face. They never.
I was going to say, how did you recognize him?
I was told he was there. That's the only reason I knew. I didn't know either what he looked like because his picture has never been used.
No.
It was just the rankings. It was just the Sagarin rankings, and it was the thing. Now, had he been more media savvy, he probably should have started saying, hey, this has got to be included with this.
Yeah.
But it's just, I didn't absolutely. And would barely now, he is simply a Joe off the street. He's just the smartest guy off the street is all. Probably the smartest guy in this. I don't know. One of the smartest guys in this state, in this country. I mean, he went to MIT. Let's don't forget.
Right. And it's always interesting to see the guys at MIT that end up turning to sports as a way to use what they know in terms of mathematics or science or whatever they're doing there. And that they turn to sports as kind of their outlet, which is always interesting because there are just so many different directions you can go if you go to MIT. And sports is not usually the one, but yeah, some guys, that's their passion, and good for him, because the game is better for him deciding to do sports.
Well, let's see. We got a little more time before we got to take a break. After 15 months without an official visitor on the Indiana campus, live recruiting visits begin this month, and June 1st marks the end of the dead period, meaning recruiting prospects. They're allowed to take their visits. As we said earlier, the coaches are busy. They're out scattered about, whether it's football, basketball, doesn't matter. They're everywhere. Indiana's first visitor on campus was Tuesday, June 1st, as commit Tamar Bates got the first glimpse of what Bloomington was like. We saw the picture he sent out, his family at the sample gates, pointed that out yesterday. The biggest question surrounding Mike Whitson's hire was the lack of college basketball coaching experience, which to me is a joke. It's basketball, man. College basketball has become is evolving.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what Woodson said when he got hired, right? Was basketball is basketball. He's here to teach basketball. And yeah, the level, he's not teaching NBA players anymore, but it's still teaching the game. And maybe there are some concepts that he's going to have to go over a little bit more heavily that NBA players maybe know by second nature, but it's basketball. He's not speaking a foreign language here. And
now the depth that is going to be on this roster is one that has not been seen in a few years. Last year, you knew exactly who was going to start. You knew who was going to play, about how many minutes. You knew who the few that were going to come off the bench. That is out the door now. There's a few guys where I will guess who will start. Trace Jackson Davis, of course. Other than that, I don't know.
We genuinely do not know what the rotations are going to look like next year. I mean, there are 7 new faces on this team. We have no idea, or 6 or 7. We have no idea what the rotations are going to look like next year, outside of Trace Jackson Davis being slotted in at power forward and having the center position figured out because they brought in Durr, the transfer, and who's basically the only center on the roster at this point. Outside of that, we don't know.
Well, also because you don't know who's going to improve. Once they get here, start playing, they don't know, because once they go from June through July into August, September, you get those months in now. You get those reps in now. Somebody's game can change by having the right person make a right adjustment. It could be one thing. Who knows? But they don't know, because there's development that is going to happen over the next 3 months. There's team development and player individual development that is going to happen over the next 3 months, like it hasn't happened in the last few years here. But part of that are new faces, like you said. So what role are they going to play, or how many of those are going to be starters? Because you lost a starter in Armand Franklin, but I personally think that Indiana upgraded everywhere they lost. I think that they upgraded with Miller Kopp at that wing position over Jerome Hunter. I personally think that they have upgraded over Armand Franklin. I just don't think he had the confidence to do the job that's needed to be done. Getting to the rim, being to stand up when you got to stand up, hit a shot if a shot's got to be hit, or make the pass it's got to be made. But somebody's got to be in that role that can do all of those things. It's willing to do all of those things. And that's a team leader. And they didn't have that.
No. And so one thing you talked about, guys, they're going to improve over the summer. We talked to Mike Woodson last week, and what he kept emphasizing was June 10th. That's a week from now. That's when he gets to start working out with the team a little bit and kind of observing for the first time really in a team setting as the coach. And he seems to be extremely excited about that, because he is counting on some of it, not only hoping, but counting on some of these players improving significantly over the summer. He talked about, obviously, we know about Trace Jackson Davis and shooting from the outside, but he wants Race Thompson to be able to shoot from the outside. He talked about Rob Finney getting his confidence back and really getting him to where he needs to be, getting Trey Galloway to be a better shooter, getting Jordan Geronimo to be a little bit less raw on the defensive end and know where he's going, so he can use that athleticism to get in front of things instead of needing to use the athleticism to catch up. Because that was a lot last year, was where Geronimo was so athletic that even when he was out of position, he was able to figure it out. but you want him to be in position because then he's able to be a destructive force on that end. So that's only scratching the surface of the things that Indiana needs to get done this summer in order to have a good team in the fall. And Woodson knows that. So the coaching, he's got the roster in place now. The roster is where it needs to be. It's deeper, more talented than it was last year. Now you need to go about molding it into a team. And that's going to be the real test for Woodson.
Yeah, every player has to be able to shoot the ball. And because whatever role you have, unless you're 7'6", you're probably not going to be standing out on taking perimeter shots. But other than that, and maybe the 7-footer, but a 7-footer, if he can develop a shot, is a guaranteed lifelong job in the NBA. But for everybody else on this team, they have to shoot the ball. You have to be able to shoot the ball. You look at Michigan, their roster last year. All those guys could shoot the ball. That's what makes you good.
With the 7-footer in the middle.
Yes, and you take a team that you're stretching them now. You're stretching their defensive limits with a monster in the middle. Man, you're imposed now. You're imposing your will on somebody. Indiana has not done that. They have just been trying to climb up a wall for the last 4 years, it seems like. But you have to impose your will, and now they will have the ability to do that with this talent. But you've got to have guys that can shoot the ball, they can drive the ball, kick the ball, do all those things that we didn't see over the last few years that I promise you will be changed now.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it too. Indiana is familiar with that, with the way shooting can stretch the floor because it was done to them over the last 4 years, right? Like in Indiana, their defense was predicated on packing the lane, and then they'd have to help and recover on shooters, and it would just seem so difficult so many times for them to get out on guys who were open shooting from the outside, and it hurt them. We saw it in both Illinois games last year. Illinois was able to win both of those games close, even though Indiana hung around because they were able to get some threes late in the game. And Indiana's defense just struggled to contain the three-pointer. And it just shows you how even when you have talent and discipline on that end of the floor, shooting just stretches you. You get into rotations. You miss a rotation. It just takes one, and you guys has an open shot.
Lawrence North's Omar Cooper, a wide receiver, is going to shuffle his visits around now that the dead period has been lifted. He is going to visit with Cincinnati, Indiana, and West Virginia. So let's see. He's trying to figure out something with Illinois as well. He was scheduled to come to Illinois. He's got an official on the 18th, the 20th. Reginald slated to visit Indiana this weekend, but he had to change that because they're going to camp. So he's going to be doing that later, but nothing big deal there. Hey, we got plenty more to talk about. We'll be back to do it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for a relaxing...
I reached out to Bob, didn't hear from him.
All right, let him know that we go till... Yeah, let him know we go to 11 today.
Okay, yeah, I'll let him know.
Why not make it 10 and make that the loudest? Because it goes to 11.
Because the radio station wants 2 hours.
Huh. My dad insisted that I watch Spinal Tap when I was like 16.
You watch your what?
The Spinal Tap. Have you ever seen Spinal Tap, Jim?
You know what? I don't know that I've seen it. What's it about?
It's a parody. It's made like a documentary about a rock band called Spinal Tap that is kind of in the twilight of their
Tap.
they're in the twilight of their career. They're not playing good shows anymore, and it's a documentary about kind of their fall from grace, essentially. But it's a comedy because they're stupid, essentially.
It's a comedy. I did not know that.
I mean, it's funny. Like, it's not a comedy like you would think of a comedy, but it is extremely funny because it's an 80s movie where everything is a joke in some way, you know, and it's dressed up in a serious manner, but it's made in documentary style, and there's like a parody of John and Yoko and what it's incredibly funny. And there is a line where they talk about they have a speaker that the amp has a setting that goes to 11, and the documentary filmmaker asks, well, why don't you just make it go to 10 like everyone else, but make it louder? And the guy responds, exactly, because it goes to 11. This one goes to 11.
That's funny. Stonehenge mockumentary.
Yes, Stonehenge. There's a great scene where they wanted to do a prop where they brought a.
We should save this for the show, man.
All right, we can. I will happily.
This is Spinal Tap.
I will absolutely explain the plot of Spinal Tap on this show. I absolutely will.
They're coming back.
Got you covered. They're Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. For deals like this, how about a new 2020 Honda Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month, or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
I hope everyone's having a dry Wednesday. Dylan Sinn with me from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette as always. We're just in the break talking about Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap. I don't think I ever watched that movie.
I would highly recommend anyone listening watch it. It is a documentary. It is basically a mockumentary was the term that they used of a declining rock band in the 1980s and kind of their fall from grace. And fantastic movie. My dad made me watch it when I was a teenager, and I did not regret it. So it was actually, I believe it was my parents' second date was going to see it in theaters. If you want to know how old I am, that was my parents' second date.
Sources that Boston Celtics president Danny Ainge seriously mulling his future with the team.
Interesting.
I just saw something else that was in regards to Brad Stevens. Potentially, I'm not kidding. I'm trying to find that. I'll have to pull that back up, but it had to do with him potentially moving into a front office job.
Interesting. Is he's not going to reconsider the Godfather offer that Scott Dolson made him? Is he? Should we get that? Should we get that rumor mill swirling again like it was in the middle of March there?
Well, I mean, it's Sham Shigara from The Athletic. I wish Bob was on with us today, but it says Brad Stevens is moving from his head coaching role to leading the Celtics basketball operations, and
wow.
Stevens will lead the search for the Celtics' new coach.
Wow. That is...
Boston head coach Brad Stevens is planning a transition from his current role into becoming the new head of basketball operations. So the Celtics sources tell The Athletic and Stadium.
That is...
Danny Ainge plans to resign from his role as Celtics president, sources said.
Wow. I mean, I'm not really surprised about Ainge just because they had this core of players that 2 or 3 years ago looked like it was going to be the future of the Eastern Conference over there in Boston, and it just really hasn't panned out the way they thought it was going to, especially after getting Gordon Hayward. But yeah, picking Stevens to move into the front office, that's an old school move. You used to see that fairly often where coaches would be the coach for a while and then move into the front office role. Don't really see that quite as much anymore because the job descriptions of coach and general manager are so different than they used to be. But yeah, that is a huge step for Brad Stevens. And if he knew that was a possibility, that might partially explain at least why he did not take that Godfather offer that Scott Dolson apparently made him during the coaching search at IU.
Well, you knew that he was thinking ahead back then. I don't know what We don't know what he knew, what he didn't know. That's the thing. You never know what you don't know. That's what I try to tell people all the time. You just don't know what you don't know. So we don't know if he did. If Danny said, things aren't going well. Everybody was thinking about Brad Stevens being fired. They're all talking about Brad Stevens is the one getting fired, is why he should move to Indiana. When it wasn't Stevens getting fired, it's Danny Ainge that's moving out.
Yeah.
So maybe he knew that was a potential to move up. Again, no recruiting, no coaching. How old is the guy?
Is he 40? He's in his mid 40s now, right? Early 40s still? Yeah.
So young guy. I mean, he's got all the money he needs.
Yeah.
He calls himself a masshole. So if that's true, then he's happy. He's truly happy.
He is. Yeah. And I mean, clearly they think the world of him up there in Boston. Like I'm sure those conversations were going on behind the scenes where clearly they think the world of him in Boston. If they're promoting him from coach to essentially running the entire show and then letting him be heavily involved in choosing the new coach, clearly they think he's the guy, right? They think he's the guy that is going to make them successful. And so he probably had that conversation at least, even if he was leaning toward never taking the IU job, no matter what, he almost certainly had a conversation with higher ups in the Celtics organization saying, what is my future here? And I would not be surprised if something like this was discussed as a possibility. Maybe not this soon, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was discussed as a possibility, because clearly if they're giving him this, if this turns out to be the case, as Shams is very often correct on these things, that is a huge commitment to Brad Stevens from the Celtics.
Really? You think so?
I mean, I think turning over the whole operation to him and letting him lead the search for the new coach is basically saying, we are turning our franchise over to you. Here are the keys to the Ferrari. That is the biggest sign of faith you can give in a basketball mind, is to basically say you are our guy in the front office and you are the guy to choose the next coach.
Yeah, but that's not, to me, I'm not shocked, because he's had that mind. He did it from a coaching standpoint, and you watch him as he was coaching, was doing it as someone who was in a back office, because not nervous, never nervous. The guy never showed any. He's got that resting heart rate. That's why he's great. He's got a mind that just moves like this, that doesn't get bothered, that doesn't get exasperated, and he can stay calm, make great decisions. And that's why not shocked at all. He's just got one of those brains that I wish I had. But yeah, he's just one of those people that has just got what it takes. And he's not, because he's a great athlete. It's all mental.
Right.
And Boston sees that, and they recognize that.
Yeah. And that's, you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, that there was a time in the middle of this season when the Celtics were really struggling, where there were kind of just a little bit, there were whispers of, is it the end of his time in Boston? Does he, obviously he's a good coach, but is it time for a change for him, where maybe he goes and gets another job in the NBA somewhere? But clearly the Celtics were thinking the exact opposite, where we need to hang on to this guy. And they clearly, from what I can tell, if this is the case, and by the way, Woj has also had this scoop as well, so it seems like it's happening. They clearly think that this was not on him. The way this Celtics team kind of has fallen off over the last year or two here is not on him in any way, shape, or form. They think it's more of either a Danny Ainge issue or just kind of bad luck. But yeah, there were rumors or questions about whether it was near the end of his time in Boston, and now the exact opposite is happening.
Tim points out that Miller Kopp is on the NBA early entry list. He must withdraw by July 7th to play college basketball. He'll be here playing well before then, so I would imagine he would do that once he gets on campus, I think.
Yeah, the whole thing with the draft nowadays is a lot of these guys just enter the draft so they can get the feedback from the general managers and scouts, which is a huge part of the draft process. Obviously, I would say Miller Kopp is probably in there. Probably, we don't know his mind, probably. is in there just to get that feedback, and never doesn't really have any intention of leaving. It's just a question of, let's talk to these guys. Let's see what they think of A, my draft stock, and B, what I need to get better at this season in order to improve that draft stock for next year, which of course is invaluable advice, right? Like obviously having Mike Woodson be your coach is somewhat the same thing, right? You know what NBA guys are looking for, but now these are actual NBA guys telling you, hey, this is what we want to see from you this season if we're going to consider drafting you next year or bringing you into camp. And that's really valuable information. That's something the NCAA has done a good job of, is telling guys, look, you go get all the information you need before making a formal decision. And I still wish that they would let guys go through the draft process completely before deciding whether to come back. If guys think they're going to get drafted, then they go undrafted. Then I think they should be allowed to come back and have as much freedom as they want there. But the NCAA has at least opened it up a little bit in the last 5 years here, where guys can get more information before they make a decision, and they're not pressured to make a choice without a whole lot of information in front of them. And I think that's
Yeah, I think as long as you don't sign with an agent, that should be fine. Let's give them the opportunity. But there's so many other changes now. You've got that league that we talked about. I forget who I spoke about that is paying players, juniors and seniors in high school, to come play for them. It's competing with the G League, and probably going to compete in a overtime elite. Yeah. With Kyle Nedrip. Well, they're paying players, man, and they're paying them well, $100,000, and they put money in escrow for college if they don't make it in the pros, that they have school money for school. So a lot of competition out there these days for these kids. But this is the Brad Stevens thing, though. It's just going to be something for Indiana basketball fans to talk about. But this just shows that he was maybe he was kind of looking to end his coaching, and he was definitely not looking for a new coaching venture that was going to require revamping and doing all the things that it's going to require. He wasn't looking for that. He didn't go to IU. He's not an IU guy. I mean,
it says, Woj just tweeted, Stevens has been described as worn down with coaching since the bubble and welcomed the chance to make the transition to the front office. So he not only was he not looking for a new coaching job, he was not looking. He is tired of coaching. Apparently, he wants to do something else. Maybe he'll get back into coaching eventually if it turns out that he's not quite as good in the front office as he was on the bench. But for right now, he seems like he wants a new challenge.
And going from the Boston Garden to the Assembly Hall, there's no let up, and other than it's fewer games, but that's just as a coach, night in, night out doing that's a grind. It's a lot of pressure. And, of course, I'm not going to say that there's more pressure in Indiana than there is Boston because it's pro sports, but you've got an entire state leaning on you, wanting this job. So, yeah, he was just done with the pressure. And I can't, why blame him? He's done it. He proved that he can do what he can do. Maybe he can do more in this role for Boston. And that's what Boston is probably seeing.
I will say it's interesting that people were saying, well, he's in the NBA, so he doesn't have to recruit. And that's something that who wants to go out recruiting? No one likes that. But now he's a general manager. He's going to have to go out and basically recruit guys. Like that's he is going into a job that requires recruiting in a certain sense. That he didn't have to do for the last few years here, but apparently it was the coaching that was the problem. He just apparently burned out on it. He didn't want to do it anymore. And maybe just needed a break from it. You wonder if this is a permanent thing, if he's hoping this goes well and he stays in the front office permanently, or if he'll get back into coaching eventually. But yeah, he's a 44-year-old guy. He is not an old he's a veteran, but he's not old by any means. There are still so many ways his career could go. He could have 30 more years in the
and was this a condition of keeping him from taking the IU job?
You can't roll that out because it says the reporting says that Ainge has been like it has been preparing to step down for months now. So clearly when IU came calling, something like this was already being discussed or at least batted around. And the IU offer probably threw a wrench in the works, at least a little bit, I would think. At the very least, Ainge was like, well, look who else wants me. I could get $70 million reportedly. Let's talk business here, right? At the very least, even if he had never had any intention of taking the IU job, that is at least something that probably came up in those conversations where he could say, I am clearly an in-demand person. Make me an offer here, that kind of thing. And maybe the offer is already on the table. We don't know. Again, as you said, Jim, we don't know what we don't know. But that's something that clearly almost certainly threw a wrench in the works.
Well, it's definitely added a lot of leverage on Brad Stevens' side. And there's no way I could see them wanting to lose him out of their organization because of we talked about his youth. That mind, if you can look how long they had Red Auerbach, and they had continuity. You go back the Bird year, all that continuity. It's about continuity. Great programs. If you look, there's continuity during those great times. The Patriots, what continuity did you have? You had continuity, coach and quarterback. I mean, it's just it's of the utmost importance to have that. And pro sports, it is a business beyond college. I mean, it is twice. I think it's twice as more pressure, twice as everything. And college fans don't always understand that if they're not exposed to pro sports as much. But they don't care about college relationships and all that stuff. They just want to win. They've got to put a winning product out there. And I think that they know keeping Brad Stevens is the best way for Boston to do that.
Yeah. And apparently there's also reporting now that Danny Ainge is possibly that the next step for him might be somewhere to Utah, because that's something, because he's has familiarity with that area as well. So Utah, another one of the best teams in basketball this year. We'll see if that's something that happens going forward as well. So Danny Ainge possibly landing on his feet too. Sometimes you just need a change of scenery after a certain amount of time at a job, and it seemed like it was about that time for Danny Ainge.
Well, yeah, because he's not been in just the front office there. He was a longtime player during those great years, world title championship years with Bird and all that. So he's a part of that Celtics family, man. They usually don't cut that apart. But I don't know who owns the Celtics now. So I don't even know who is running the Celtics. I mean, he was up there pretty high, but not high enough that he calls his own shots.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that he'd been there for so long. He'd been with the Celtics in some capacity since I think 2003. Tony, that would be an interesting choice for the intro and outro. Absolutely. But yeah, he'd been there since 2003. They'd won a title in 2008, so he was part of that. And obviously, he built this current roster, which seemed like it had championship potential, as we talked about earlier, and it just hasn't panned out that way. With Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Kemba Walker, that is a team that you think would be among the top teams in the East. It was not this year. Injuries obviously were part of that, but it just didn't pan out that way. And sometimes it's time for a change.
Yep, let's take a break. We'll talk about it more when we come back.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking... Well, I'm glad that broke while we're on the air.
Yeah, no, it seems like nothing like that ever happens while we're on the air.
That's because it's outside of Indiana.
Well, remember, Romeo will be under a. We'll see what Brad Stevens thinks of Romeo pretty soon here. If he's going into the front office, we'll see if Romeo is part of their future future plans here pretty soon.
Well, do you think he had anything to do with taking Romeo?
A great question. I don't know. I don't know exactly how much input he would have had into front office decisions when Ainge was running the show there. You'd think that they at least would have collaborated somewhat, but not to the extent. We don't know the extent to which they would have collaborated. So we will see. There are jokes going around about Tom Crean taking an assistant coaching job with the Celtics, or the coaching job with the Celtics.
Did he get fired?
Funny.
He is not.
No,
He is not. He is still technically
okay.
Georgia.
See, I didn't think
Not
he got
yet.
let go at Georgia.
Not yet.
I'd say he's got one more year though with him if he doesn't do anything.
He's not going to do anything.
Didn't he lose his best player to Kentucky, Severe Wheeler, or whatever his name is?
He's lost his best players on his team.
Oh, so not just him, everybody.
It's everyone.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to play for that. He's a nut. He's a whack job, man.
As much as people like to hate on Tom Crean, I genuinely liked him as a human being.
It's because you didn't freaking work around him. He's a fucking nut.
See, that was the thing is he was there before I met him a few times when I was covering games for like
He could
24/7 and whatnot, but I never really interacted with him on a regular basis on the beat. So I don't have the background in Crean like I do with Archie.
What have you heard about him?
Who's the one thing
That he's a nut.
Dustin told me that he was not very punctual in his media availability.
Like way bad.
Really?
Bad.
I'm sure that made JD's life fun.
Oh, now Archie was punctual and only lasted about 10 minutes.
All right.
That was yeah.
Everyone. Sam's Restaurant in Fishers has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
I hope your Wednesday is going well. Drying out for you at some point because it has been a wet one. The biggest news of the day breaking, Brad Stevens looks to be giving up his role as head coach of the Boston Celtics and moving into the front office as Danny Ainge is moving on from the Celtics as president. What is he? President GM?
It seems like president of basketball. Well, let's see.
Basketball head of basketball operations.
Director of basketball operations. Yes, that's what Shams had.
Ainge is.
Ainge
is resigned from his role as Celtics president. Okay, then who's going to be the president?
That's a good question. They might not have. They might kind of do a little bit of a title shifting because I think Brad Stevens is going to be director of basketball operations, not technically the president. It might be a title thing where he has the same formal responsibilities, just not the title because it's his first time doing this. We'll see that some of the corporate umbrella is always a maze that no one really knows how that works in every different organization. But it is possible they bring in a president as well, someone who oversees the entire thing. But we'll see as we go forward here.
Yeah, it's funny. You'll start seeing all the. If you want to go nuts, go to Facebook. But you'll see people talking now about, this makes me think that Stevens wanted to come to Indiana. They nope. This makes me think even more. Never was he thinking about coming to Indiana. It's my opinion. I don't think that he was ever thinking about leaving that job. I'm sure he listened to them, but there's no way he was considering coming because he turned down twice the money.
Yeah,
reportedly, allegedly.
Look, but the important thing, the important thing, and I said this all along, is that Dolson made the call. right? When the coaching job was open, when they moved on from Archie, the first call Dolson should have made was, Brad, we're going to offer you $70 million. What do you say? We want you. And if he says no, he says no. But that was the call that had to be made. And he went out and made it, and he didn't want it. That's fine. You have to check that box if you're the IU athletic director, and Dolson went out and did it. And then he got a coach who has NBA experience, and you've seen the results since then, which have been very positive so far, at least offseason wise. I did see a joke on Twitter a few minutes ago, and many people are making this joke now, that Mike Woodson will be the next coach of the Boston Celtics. So that would be interesting as well.
Yeah, that's not happening.
But it does. I mean, one of the best coaching jobs in the entire sport of basketball is now open again. That's a team with young talent. It's a team with a guy in the front office who knows how to win. So one of the most coveted jobs in basketball is open, and we'll see where they go, what direction they go with that.
And normally you would say that there's no way you would look at a college coach for that position. But look who's in the position above that coaching position. A guy who did nothing but coach in college before he came to Boston. So, but I think that they will probably go with a veteran.
Probably.
Because I think that Brad Stevens would prefer to have a veteran coach that he could turn that over to, and he handles player development, player personnel, and all that stuff. But he's not going to want to be training a coach or developing a coach.
Right.
You want that done. I think they go with a veteran.
It's always risky when you have a new coach and a new GM or basketball operations director, because then they're both learning on the job, and neither of them can lean on the other one when they get stuck. So I think you're right about that. They probably will bring in someone who has coaching experience, and it'll be interesting to see because I'm sure we'll start seeing names leak out very soon here of guys who are on the short list, because I'm sure they have a short list in mind. If this move has been in the works for a while here, I'm sure they have a short list in mind, and we'll start seeing names leak out here pretty soon, I would think.
Brad Stevens could work out a deal with Archie Miller and say, I'll tell you what, I can name you the head coach since you don't really coach and you'd only do it in principle, and I'm still coaching, and I'll take half your salary and all of mine too.
Well, there we go. Just as we say that, Los Angeles Lakers assistant Jason Kidd and former Atlanta Hawks coach Lloyd Pierce are expected to be top head coaching candidates for the Boston Celtics, sources say.
But whose sources, though? I mean, that's pretty quick coming out. That's pretty quick coming from the West Coast on an East Coast story,
That's Yahoo. Those would both be interesting hires. Absolutely.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Brad Stevens does not have this long, deep NBA relationship. It's not like he played in the NBA. He's been coaching in there forever. And it's not that he doesn't have any, but he doesn't have this coaching tree. He doesn't have this deep, like Popovich would have, or someone like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So this is going to, now the Celtics do, but it's just going to be interesting to see what direction they go. I mean, the coach under Brad Stevens, under the young mind, it'll be interesting, but.
I mean, one guy you'd think if he didn't have history there, one guy you'd think would be on the list would be Doc Rivers, which would be, but obviously he was there forever and has moved on. But in any other situation, you'd think he'd be on the short list.
And he might be. I mean, maybe with Brad Stevens, it's a different situation on working there. Who knows? Who cares? It'll work itself out. But that just brings up, I love the irony that continues to fall out. There's never enough of it. But yeah, I don't think he ever considered coming to Indiana. I don't think he was ever thinking about getting back into college coaching again, ever.
Yeah.
Of course, we can all guess whatever we want to, but with the numbers that were thrown at him, that we're pretty sure those numbers are accurate. He turned down a ton of money, so it was not about money. And this is more about what it's about. He wants to be a pro, and that's where he's going to stay, and that's what he's doing exactly.
And clearly, he enjoys the city of Boston as well. Like you talked about earlier, he called himself an asshole. And he enjoys working there, clearly. Obviously, you don't make this kind of commitment to the franchise. Like, they're making a commitment to him, but you don't make this commitment to the franchise as the personnel if you don't feel that way about the city itself and the team that you've built there. So he's making a long-term commitment to the Celtics as well.
Rob Doster, this is kind of a moronic take, says the real storyline here is that Brad Stevens basically said, I'd rather not coach basketball than coach Indiana.
I don't know about that. I don't think that's – I mean, again, like it seems like –
it's got a bunch of retweets too.
Right. I mean, again, it seems to be that he didn't want to coach at all. I mean, that's probably a troll. But yeah,
that's Rob Doster.
Yeah, like don't get me started with some of these national guys who are here to bury Indiana, but
they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah,
right. But like, it seems like he was burned out on coaching in general. Yes, he did not want to coach Indiana. He did not want to coach the Celtics. He doesn't want to coach the Celtics anymore. I don't see why that reflects poorly on Indiana. There's probably going to be some weird storyline coming out of this about how this reflects poorly on Indiana somehow, because that's how this works. But yeah, I don't see that in my opinion.
No, me either. But it's that does aggravate me when you got some young punk types that just take shots that there are more. It's not. There's nothing to that. There is nothing that actually warrants it, especially. It makes no sense. It's a ridiculous statement to say, to be honest with you. That's a moronic take. To be honest, that is an absolute moronic take. Because you think it's hard to turn around a program with the right situation? No. You think it's hard to turn around a monster program with the right situation? Hell no. Watch the change that happens in Indiana basketball. You have to have the right people in place at all positions. And that means the positions that put the people in place. You have to have the right athletics director making the right hire of the right people to do the things needed to be done. Like just happened. That wasn't happening before because you did not have the right people in place, putting the right people in place. That's why failure happens. And that's why success happens. Yeah. But that's just a moronic take. Easy, cheap shot.
And I'm sure, he'd say he's joking and whatnot. But like, what are we doing here? Like, so many of these national writers have basically decided that Indiana is going to be their punching bag for whatever reason. Kind of the same way that Notre Dame is in football. And I cover both of them, so like I see so many of these takes all the time. But yeah, if they've decided that Indiana is going to be their punching bag because they think the fans are delusional about being a blue blood and whatever and yada yada yada, and it's just whatever, man. Cool, you got your shot in on IU. Good for you. Congratulations.
But the funny thing is, what happens when Indiana's successful this season?
This
season, what happens if they're successful? And I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying, what happens if they're successful this season? These same morons, people, just remember them, people. Remember them.
I do remember. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm not sure. On Indiana fan Twitter, it's basically become kind of a running joke every time Indiana gets a transfer to come in. It's a running joke. 50 people immediately post, but I was told Mike Woodson couldn't recruit.
Yeah. It's just, I just want to make sure we don't go over, but yeah, it's cheap shot, but oh well, who cares? But interesting. You know what? puts Indiana in the limelight again. It doesn't matter. Indiana. No bad publicity is bad publicity. But a little surprising about Brad Stevens, but it's not really. I mean, in this day and age, he's got kids. He probably wants to be. This is probably I don't know if it's an easier situation to be normal than being a coach, because being a coach does not provide for a normal life. But maybe in this position, you have less nights till 2 a.m. You have less travel. He doesn't travel. Maybe he doesn't travel with the team.
Yeah.
There could be a whole bunch of things. He's making more money. He's less travel, less stress,
more power.
It's just nothing but positive for him.
Oh yeah.
Why would you not?
And he's leveraged his coaching ability into even a higher job. So yeah, good for him. Good for him to be able to move up. And it does seem like maybe we're backfilling a little bit, but it did seem like he was a little bit burned out this past year. Again, the Celtics did not have the season they wanted at all. And you wonder whether that was taking a toll on him, but it seemed like just coaching in general was taking a toll on him. The reporting is that it's been since the bubble. So we'll see where this goes from here. I wouldn't rule out the possibility at all of him getting back into coaching at some point, but clearly he needed a break and a reset, and now he's going to run the show.
Yep, and we'll see how that works out. But now the most important thing, or not important, but surprising thing, is who's going to be their next head coach.
Yeah. And that immediately becomes the one of the biggest stories of the NBA offseason, which has not even started yet. We still have 3 rounds of the playoffs to go, or 3.5 rounds of the playoffs to go. But yeah, that immediately becomes one of the biggest stories of the next several weeks here, even as the playoffs are happening.
Let's see. Where was I looking? I mentioned John Beeline. There was something else. Oh, yeah, LeBron. LeBron James poorly left a game early last night, 6 minutes early.
Yeah, I walked in the locker room. Yeah, I saw that. Not exactly what you want to see from your team leader, I guess. But
6 minutes. 6 minutes. That's to me. I don't care who you are. That is not acceptable from any team member of any level. I don't give a damn who you are. That is not acceptable. Period. I don't care what sport. I don't care what the reason, unless you're bleeding and bastard and they're dragging you in for care. Other than that, there is absolutely, and thank God I waited till the last few minutes to bring this subject up, no excuse for that. I mean, what are you showing to to kids? What are you showing to high school kids, to little kids in college even? Because you're the elite player of that team, you can walk off? Man, that's a loser to me. That is just a loser.
And yeah, I mean, obviously it was a very tough night for the Lakers in general, losing that game by 30 points. They were down 30 at halftime. That was just one of the more baffling performances of these playoffs so far. Obviously, they're missing Anthony Davis, but that's a must-win game against Phoenix. And yeah, they were not even in that game from the start. But if we want to keep talking about the NBA here for a second, did you stay up all the way to the end of Nuggets Blazers?
Are you kidding me? No,
you were not. You're not
interested.
It turned out into a absolutely fantastic game at the end. Damian Lillard went.
Oh yeah,
completely bonkers. Had 50 points, however many points it was, and it was still not enough. Someone get Damian Lillard some help up there in Portland. He absolutely carried them at the end of the first overtime. He scored 6 points in a row on 2 absolutely ridiculous 3-pointers. And to get them to a second overtime still wasn't enough.
But what did he score? Like he hits record 12 threes.
Yes. He was absolutely unconscious at the end of that game. And the thing was, they were not open. Everyone in the entire gym knew exactly who was getting the ball, and he was hitting threes contested over two guys. It was an absolute clinic. from a guy who just keeps getting better, apparently, is among the best players in the world, and just was not good enough. And to be clear, Jokic was great for the Nuggets, too. He had one, I'm not sure if you've seen the gif of it this morning, but it's kind of all over Twitter. One of the best skip passes I've ever seen in my life. I didn't know that a skip pass could be beautiful, but it was. And guy was cutting to the rim, defender followed him. Jokic kind of faked the pass to the middle and sent the pass out to the corner. And it was basically like a crossover. The defender fell over because the pass went a different direction. Absolutely incredible stuff. And Jokic, that's an MVP play from a guy who's probably going to win the MVP.
Yeah, man, that was an electrifying performance. 55 points, 12 3-pointers. We'll see how it continues to go forward as the NBA goes on. You can carry that on, and we'll follow that with you. But tomorrow on the show, Dustin Schutte, Chris Denari, Matt Taylor. We'll see what else we can get to and carry on. How's the rest of your day? I hope you have a great rest of your day, Dylan.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Jim, and always nice to be here.
Absolutely. Fun time as always. And a big thanks to, Aaron Matus was on today, and everybody else didn't make it. So I don't have to thank anybody else besides all of you guys, which you're the most important part of the day. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to coming back tomorrow, doing it again. And go out and stay dry. Have a great rest of your weekend, Dylan. And until we see you again, have a good one, buddy.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, Jim.
And everybody else, go out and have a great day yourself. Do something nice for somebody. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.